Hello, this is Greg Smith, President of Charge Your Course International. I'm an organizational consultant, and I'm here today because of Ed Oakley with Enlightened Leadership. Now, I have always been fascinated with sailing and the sea and the ocean. And many years ago, a real outstanding movie came out called The Deep. And you might remember it had Nick Nolte and Jacqueline Bisset in it. And this movie was filmed off the island of Tortola on a famous shipwreck called the Wreck of the Rome. Now, at the time, I was living in San Juan, Puerto Rico, and my wife and I flew over to Tortola, and we chartered a boat, and we dove on the Wreck of the Rome. And we got our diving equipment, went to the bottom of the ocean, about 100 feet deep, and there's this shipwreck. It was very mystifying to me because this wreck, even though it sank in the late 1800s, seemed like it was brand new. So that aroused my curiosity, and I found out, why did this ship sink? And the interesting thing I found out is that this ship in the late 1800s was the most advanced technology of shipmaking at the time. And what happened, it was delivering the mail to the British Virgin Islands, and it ran across a hurricane. Now, the interesting thing that for most of us who love to sail and love the sea, we understand when you're in a ship and you hit a storm, the last thing you want to do is turn tail and run away from it. It's far safer to head directly in the storm. And the captain made a mistake and tried to run away from this terrific hurricane and sank to the bottom of the ocean. Everybody was lost on the ship except for two people. Now, the interesting thing, when we look back on this storm, it sort of looks like a lot of businesses today who are facing this horrific economy that we're facing. It also, as leaders, we have to understand that when we're in a storm, we can't avoid it. We have to look for the opportunity in the crisis. Now, I've learned as an organizational consultant that there are three words that we have to keep in mind during navigating during the storms. And each word starts with the letter R. The first one is we have to readjust. The second word is we have to redirect. And the third word is we have to re-innovate. Now, the first word, readjust. When we realize that we're headed into a storm, whether we are as business leaders or businesses, we have to change the course. Many businesses today, they're in this hurricane, this economic downturn, and all they see is the crisis. So when we realize that we're in our ship, or whether we're as leaders or as businesses, what has worked in the past won't work in the future. So we have to readjust where we're heading. The second word is we have to redirect. Now, that's really the hardest aspect of managing change. That means what has worked in the past may not work in the future. So we have to redirect our customs, our habits, maybe even our culture to ensure that we're still relevant in today's economy. Because as I said before, what made us successful last year may be the very same thing that's going to make us unsuccessful today. So we first readjust, meaning change course. As a navigator, you always have a compass to know where you're going. As a leader, whether you're optimistic or you're feeling negative, we have to lead optimistically. The second word is redirect, meaning changing our habits, making sure people today are more accountable, that they're stepping up to the plate, assuming responsibility, because most of us are having to do more with fewer people. And the third word, to me, which is the most exciting, that comes out of navigating change, is re-innovate. Meaning, once we change our culture, we change our direction, we now are in a position where we can create something new. We always have to be innovating. Now, I remember Walt Disney, and many years ago, he was asked to speak to a college university. And one of the students in the class said, "Walt, what do I have to do to be a successful business person?" And he said, "Easy. All you have to do is open the yellow pages, close your eyes, run your finger down the yellow pages and stop. And when you open your eyes, make that the best possible business you can make it." And then he added, "I just never got past amusement parks." So you have to look at something that may be ordinary and how you as a leader and still make it extraordinary. If we don't innovate with all this change, if all we do is get reactive and we start cutting away people, cutting away things that we used to do, we're going to have nothing left when this economy does turn around. I worked with one small retail operation, and they were facing a crisis in their own time. A small retail operation, and they were facing competition with two large box retailers. And I don't want to name them because we all know who they are. But this small business, like many small businesses, didn't want to give up. Their sales were going down. They weren't doing very good business practices. And so the owner of the business said, look, we realize that if we don't change, we're going to be out of business in a year. We can't compete doing the same things we used to just a few years ago. In fact, this was just a small hardware store. So what we did is got a steering group, a group of leaders within this company, went off site. We recreated a brand new vision statement. We found out that the owner was tired of doing the old traditional way of, most hardware stores. They wanted to make it a family-friendly, a female-friendly hardware store because they realized 80% of the buying decisions in this country are made by women. And if you have this male model of hardware stores, you're limiting yourself tremendously. So we started changing the culture. We decided that we can no longer just hire people who just walk through the door. That, as Jim Collins said, people are not your most important asset, the right people are. So we started using hiring assessments, identifying the right personal traits that we wanted to be in our business. And so that improved. We created a customer service training program that Ritz-Carlton Hotels has used called the Stand Up, where every shift will be presented with a small 10-minute class based on the 20 customer service commandments that we came up with for that hardware store. And the interesting thing is, when you work as a consultant, you don't come in and dictate to people. What I do many times is sort of like a pilot on a ship. I help the leaders go in the right direction where they know they need to go. And there's more ownership. And the interesting thing is when we finished working with this small store, they were making more money than they ever made before because of a new vision, changing. They followed the 3 R's. They readjusted, they redirected, and they re-innovated. And they were a successful business after that. This is Greg Smith from Chart Your Course International, and I'll talk to you real soon.